Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final day of the Sports Pro OTT Summit and an exciting session we have here, taking a look at one of the major markets in Europe, in Spain, with one of the major broadcasters in that market in Movistar Plus. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Sergio Osler, president of the platform, who's going to help us get our heads around the ecosystem over there. Welcome to the show, Sergio.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. And thanks, everybody, for inviting me.
Now, let's start with you before we dig into Movistar quickly. I was having a look at your background, and you actually spent 13 years with McKinsey before joining Movistar Plus about 4 years
18 years.
How?
It felt like 50,
18
yes.
years. Oh. Well, I'd love to firstly just hear, how did you make the shift into the sports broadcasting world from an organization like McKinsey?
Well, it was basically, I guess, like in most cases, it was a bit of luck, or it was mostly luck. I was serving both telco companies and both media companies out of fun. Actually, we didn't started doing that in the very early ages. Before it was so obvious that we're going on a integration path. So I was serving Telefonica at the time. I was serving Telefonica mainly on the telco business, and I knew them quite well. And I was serving media companies elsewhere. And because, as you may know, they had the strategy to bring together telco and media, they thought that a profile like mine was perfect for the role. Hopefully, they were right. Let's see.
Now, you're 4 years in. Tell us where Movistar Plus was when you joined. Was it where was it at, I guess, in its maturity?
Yeah, I mean, as where we are now, and then we can talk maybe about some of the things that we changed. We are the traditional pay TV leader in Spain. We have around 4 million subscribers. Think about, I don't know, it would be kind of like the Sky in the UK or Canal Plus in France. That kind of player. The main difference compared to those kind of players is that as of today, we only sell TV linked together with broadband. So if you want to have the TV from Movistar Plus, you need to have the broadband from us as well, and the mobile phone from us as well. So TV is positioned as a business on itself, obviously, but also as a differentiator of our overall communication package. And the changes that we've experienced in the past 4 years, I guess, is the changes that everybody's sort of experiencing across the industry. It's changed quite a bit. When I joined, we will have many of the sport rights in the country were exclusive to us. We will have exclusive agreements with all of the fiction majors out there. And now we're shifting towards, because as we are losing some of that content in some cases because their own majors, they're launching their own D2C offerings, we're shifting towards allocating part of a budget to our own production, and we accelerated that tremendously. And also to having partnership, I think very, very good partnerships with OTT players around the world.
So the positioning, I suppose, of Movistar Plus as a platform has changed a lot over the last few years, from what you're sort of intimating there. More of a collaborative relationship with some of the other broadcasters than perhaps working in silo, would you say?
Yeah, I think our position has changed, but everybody's position in the market has changed as well. When I joined 3.5 years ago, Netflix was starting to become big in this country, and there were people still, I'm just using Netflix as a reference because they were the first ones, and so people within our company thought that Netflix was the enemy. Some people definitely, and Netflix thought that we were their enemy, people like us in the different markets. I think we've come a long way, and we've realized that we are not enemies. We need to work together. And the way that we see it now is that these guys, they are the new majors for us, in the same way that when we were dealing with Warner or Disney back in the old days, and we were buying content from them, they were not our. We were partners. We were not competing necessarily. Now it's the same thing with people like Netflix and others. There is one thing where we compete, but it's actually because of us, because we decided to go in there, which is we do compete for our own production. So when we are launching a fiction or something like that, we want to have the best talents. These guys, they want to have the best talent for the local fictions. So we do compete there. The same for sports. We do compete for some rights, obviously, but that's like a healthy competition. And other than that, we have a very healthy partnership as well.
So the marketplace is changing a lot, and how you're looking at sport, I suppose, in particular, is probably changing somewhat as well.
Yeah.
Is sport now in a place, particularly on the live sports side, becoming more or say less valuable to you in terms of what impact it has to the business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the answer would depend on the specific sport. I think what we've realized in the past few years is that there tends to be a polarization, at least for us, and when we see from our data and our up analysis. I mean, it used to be back in the day that we had all of the sports in the world, and for most of them, we were actually overpaying. It was really not worth it, and we just let go of those sports. I mean, our clients, they still have access to them, either because they get them through, I don't know, like an OTT player, like the case of DAZN in Spain, or because they get it through us because we have an agreement with DAZN. But we don't really need to overpay for the exclusivity because it really doesn't make a difference. And actually, when we let go of some of that sport, the reality is that we have zero impact in our customer base, and whether you look at it from an ARPU level or from a customer subscribers number. So I think that some sports, same thing happens with fiction, by the way. I mean, some channels, some sports, there are fillers, and that's okay. We need fillers as well, or they attack very specific niche. Whereas some other sports are becoming extremely valuable and extremely important because they are really they really move the needle in terms of subscribers and in terms of ARPU. I mean, there's a clear difference. If you lose some sports, we estimate that the impact in ARPU and subscriber base would be significant, and we have to try to protect that.
Could you talk us through, so you mentioned sports a little bit there, and you're being a bit more pragmatic, I suppose, with how you're looking at sports rights right now. What are some of those sports that you do have, the top tier sports properties that you have in the portfolio? And which ones really are moving the needle for you with regards to subscribers?
Well, in our case, the ones that are moving the needle are the ones that we have currently, because we went through that cleaning process in a bit. And maybe I should also highlight the fact that, of course, in the end, it also depends on the cost for the rights. I mean, every single sport moves the needle in some way. I mean, there's not a single sport that wouldn't attract if only like 200 people. I mean, there's some people that are really fans of their sport. I think that the trick there is not so much whether you want that sport or not. It's more around whether it's worthwhile to have that sport and to have that exclusively. Because one of the great things that has happened with global players as well, or regional players when it comes to OTT, is that these guys, I mean, in the past it used to be like it was an exclusive offer, and the decision for us, it's whether we have this movie or this sport on, and if we don't have it, somebody else will, and our clients won't be able to access that content. So if you were a fan of, I don't want to name any specific sport, but let's say curling, which is not great. I mean, it's not the biggest sport in Spain. I don't think you can actually watch curling. Well, maybe through Eurosport, but it's not big really. But if you say if we didn't go after the rights of curling and Vodafone gets those rights, then if you were a subscriber of Movistar, you wouldn't be able to access curling unless you moved to Vodafone and abandon us completely. The great thing about these OTT players is that they're fairly, transparent when it comes to platforms like us. So if we do lose curling and DAZN gets curling, it's not such a big deal. It means that we lose the exclusivity, so you can access curling if you're in Movistar or Vodafone, Orange, or whatever it is. But if you're truly passionate about that sport and you're a client of Movistar Plus, you can still access that. Not exclusively. We're not going to retain you. I mean, you could move to Vodafone tomorrow and still watch curling, so it's not a retention tool. But we don't necessarily lose ARPU or customers in that process, as long as we have an additional set of things that can increase the loyalty of the customer.
So keeping engagement through building out a comprehensive program of content, not just reliant upon sports, but also wider entertainment. A common strategy now we're seeing right across the industry of diversifying the reliance, I suppose, on different sets of rights outside of sports as well. So where you are today, and it sounds like you were spending a lot on sports rights, you've become more pragmatic with that. Would it be fair to say that that side of the business was more of a loss leader in terms of building out the whole bundle of what you were selling to customers, which is quite a common strategy from the telco side? And is that shifted now where you're trying to keep a much more balanced financial approach, or has it become a profit area for you now? What's that dynamic feel like or look like in from your point of view?
Yeah, actually, for us, it was not a loss-making area. It never was. The TV in general and sports within it. We are lucky or unlucky enough to be heavily regulated because we used to be the incumbent in this country. So by definition, by regulation, we cannot lose money, which is a funny way to run a business, actually, even if we wanted to. I mean, we have a ton of people around here in these offices checking all of our numbers, making sure that we don't do weird things. So we need to make money, or at least for a sustained amount of time. Otherwise, we get into some kind of trouble. So it wasn't a matter that we let go of some stuff because we were losing money there. It's just a matter of how do you optimize the resources that you have. So we let go. I mean, because we also had a vision of using those resources in things that clients were demanding more and more, and things that we needed to further differentiate ourselves. In the case of our own production or reaching agreements with global players. So in order to finance that, we needed to let go of some of the things that we were dealing with in the past, and we let go of things that were less profitable for us, and the things that we thought that wouldn't really have an impact on a customer base. But it's never been a loss-making business standalone, and it continues not to be so.
Okay, so can you just, for those people that aren't, there's a lot of people watching this that are not based in the Spanish market. So just talk us through the business model that you do have. Like, how much are you guys charging for the bundle offering that you are delivering to the market? What's the framework that you're basically making money, making a nice profitable business as you just described?
Yeah, well, it depends. It depends on. I mean, we have a ton of packages, but basically, the initial grasp is that we have a product that is called Fusion, Fusion. You would say that in English, I guess. Within that product, you have a broadband line connectivity. We have a huge coverage of fiber in Spain. So most of our customers are on 600 megs connectivity, and we do offer for some customers 1 gig. Well, we offer 1 gig for all customers, but most of our customers are still on 600 meg. Then we add to that mobile phones. Within Fusion, all our mobile phones have unlimited data. And then we add on top of that TV. And you have a basic package that starts at around 70 euros, which has like a broadband line, and it should be around 600 meg. And then you have a mobile phone with unlimited data, and then you have like what you would call basic cable in the US, I guess. We do have some sports there. We have our own channel there that is called Vamos. It's like the ESPN here in Spain, or at least we try to be. And then we do have our own original production there as well, and like some channels that you will know from the past, like TNT and stuff like that, and Fox and so on and so forth. And as you add more money into the mix, you migrate up to different packages, and as you migrate up to different packages, you have an upgrade in both your communications and your content. So I would say the most expensive package that we have, it's around 180 euros, something like that, which has everything. It has like 4 mobile phones with unlimited data, 1 gig to your home, and all of the content that we can offer our clients.
Sounds like an absolute bargain. I'd sign myself up if I was living in Spain, that's for sure. Okay, so one of the goals we want to have from this session is for the wider industry to understand a bit more about the Spanish market. So I think we're starting to get a good sense of Movistar Plus's position. Can you and you've touched upon how the competitive marketplace looks like, but could you just quickly talk to us about maybe how that competitive landscape does look? Is it super competitive? Who are the main broadcasters in the market, particularly from a sports perspective, obviously, just to set that scene a little bit more?
So there's been quite a change in that market, as I was talking about earlier. Up until fairly recently, there were basically there was a satellite provider, which was Digital Plus. It was like, I don't know, 7 years ago or so. It was the market leader, and it was competing head to head with the offering from Movistar, from Telefonica, which was based on IPTV and OTT, by the way. And then we were also all competing with the likes of other telco companies like Vodafone and Orange, that were offering more like a traditional cable TV distribution. So they wouldn't have their own programming, they wouldn't have their own channels, but they would reach agreement with other channels, like classical cable channels. That changed some years ago, before I even joined, when Telefonica acquired the satellite player. So it was basically now, which is now called Movistar Plus. So Movistar Plus has some satellite distribution, which is fairly small, and is becoming even smaller. And our true competitors are people like Vodafone and Orange, and we're all offering bundle TV. The way that we offer bundle TV is the traditional way that I just explained, and Vodafone and Orange, they have access to third parties, obviously, and they also have access to some of our premium content, because as a result of the acquisition of Digital Plus, we were forced into some remedies that force us to offer some of our premium content to people like Vodafone and Orange. So, for instance, we have all the football rights in Spain now, Champions League, and the La Liga, and everything. But we are forced to offer those rights as a wholesale to people like Orange and Vodafone for a price that is calculated by the regulatory agency. So that's how it used to work. It's a very traditional landscape. What has changed, obviously, in the past is that there's this launch of these D2Cs in fiction. That's been happening, as you all know, for quite a while. They're very present in Spain now. Netflix is clearly the market leader, but also Prime Video is coming up very strong. Their Prime Video is linked to the Prime offering from Amazon, and it's really cheap. It's like less than 40 euros a year. And then we also have, referring to your question around the sport, we have a specific player in Spain that you all know, I guess, which is S1D2. They got into the market, leveraging the fact you could even claim that we left the door open for them, intentionally or unintentionally, but we let go of some of the sport rights, and they took that opportunity to launch their business in Spain. And for the initial 2 years, I mean, they're nice guys and we get along fine, but we didn't work together. We were not partners. So for the initial, I think, 2 years or so, they were basically on their own. And since like a year or so, we established an integration partnership with them. So now that Zone is integrated for all of our medium to high ARPU customers, it's included within their bundle. We get along very well with them, as you say, and it's the classical situation with the Zone or Netflix or Disney or whatever. We do compete. We do compete in the case of the Zone, in the case of some sporting rights. We do compete there, obviously. So I mean, both of us, we might be interested in the Premier League, or in that case, we compete for those rights. But other than that, obviously, we also have a distribution agreement, and we're all fine.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, isn't it? We've seen it in a few markets where a mix of regulation and a mix of, I guess, the challenges around monetization of premium rights leads to a lot more and more collaboration, particularly in a time where we're seeing the behavioral shift, or the change in the way content is consumed, from this more traditional linear to the more the streaming world. Are you seeing that it's having an impact on I guess, to your business? In terms of the fact that you aren't able to, what would you call it? Say, ring fence these premium rights. Let's say that the football rights you have, having to sell those back at a regulated price must have an impact on your business, and also for the next cycle. What's the incentive for you to be bidding a premium rate? Because I guess you could do the same the other way around and let someone else take the burden of those rights. So how do you navigate that?
You're absolutely right. I think I think I have this opinion that it seems like the world has changed a lot, and the industry has changed a lot, and it has, obviously. But my very personal opinion, obviously I might be completely wrong, is that I don't think the industry really has changed that much. What is changing is the players that are leading the industry. So if you think of going back to your sports example, if you look at the case of the zone and our relationship with the zone, and you might find it weird, but the reality is that we've been dealing as an industry with something like that for many, many years. In the case of, for instance, Eurosport. I mean, Eurosport, in the case of Discovery, I mean, they used to stream channels. That's fine. I think that, by the way, I think sports will go back to channels at some point, because just using OTT for this, I mean, I don't, well, anyway, that's a long story. But other than the technical thing, whether it is IPTV, OTT, satellite, which to me is like a fairly relevant element. The truth is that these guys, we were competing with them for rights. I mean, in the case of tennis, for instance, a great example in Spain. I mean, we got the rights for Wimbledon, so Wimbledon, you can only enjoy that exclusively through us, and they have the rights for all the other three majors. And we would have loved to have one more major, at least a Grand Slam. We couldn't, because we were competing with them and we didn't win the rights, and that's okay. But at the same time, we have them integrated into a platform, and the balance for people like us, because we are integrators and we can integrate these people, whether it is Eurosport or whether it is the Zone, or whether it is in the case of sports, is not. I mean, I guess it's easier than even than what it was before. Because these guys are also eager to go into D2C, it's fine. That it gives us a certain leverage, meaning that exactly what I was saying before is like the kind of decision that you have to take is not so much whether I'm going to have this event or not. It's more around whether I want to have these exclusively, whether I want to have these non-exclusively but included within the price for my clients, or whether I want to have these or not have these within my bundle, but my clients will be able to access that anyway. For instance, in the case of Spain, I mean, we don't have, we didn't reach an economic agreement. I guess at some point we will, but we don't have an agreement with HBO Max. They've launched in Spain. We don't have an agreement with them. But that's all right. We have zero complaints from our clients saying, look, I cannot rewatch Games of Thrones because it's exclusively in Vodafone. That's not the case. I mean, any of our clients, starting with myself, I can rewatch Game of Thrones perfectly. I mean, I can do it in my TV anyway. It is true that it is not Movistar who pays for that bill, and we'd rather do that. Don't get me wrong. We'd rather do that because we believe that it gives a better service to our customers. It enables us to do a certain bunch of things, but it is not such a big deal as it was back in the old days. I mean, like before I joined, also we went through. I mean, many years ago, we went through a phase, for instance, for some months, where we didn't got the Champions League rights. Somebody else did, and we didn't have access to that. So the only way that you could enjoy Real Madrid or Barcelona playing in the Champions League was if you were a client of Orange or Vodafone. You couldn't watch any Champions League game if you were a Movistar client. That's an issue. If tomorrow the Champions League rights are, if DAZN or Amazon or where it is gets that, yes, we will lose some exclusivity, and that's why it's not obvious for us. Otherwise, we would just say, yeah, let's let them take them. I mean, it's not good for us. But if we believe that the price is right, is not right, we have a little bit more flexibility because if Amazon gets those rights, I know that my clients, my connectivity clients, and my TV clients will be able to watch Real Madrid. We will not bill them for that. They will be less loyal to us because, of course, they can move to Vodafone and still watch them, but it's not going to be a big drama.
It's interesting. I think we've seen similar in the UK to some instances with what happened when BT, came to the market with their BT Sport offering, came to the market, took Champions League rights away. There was this huge competition initially between Sky and BT Sport. I remember having conversations with one of them refusing to attend some of our conferences if the other was going to be in the room. And now they have partnership deals in place with carriage deals where it's much more friendlier. Fast forward again a little bit further, and now we're at a situation where the reports are BT Sport is set to be sold off by the telecommunications business. Potentially by DAZN. Who knows whether that report will come to fruition or not. But my question to you there is, obviously it's a similar situation. Do you see, I guess there is some similarities between, say, what BT Sport have done and perhaps how you're running what you're doing at Movistar Plus. What do you think about that as a situation, the spinning off concept? Because obviously all of your business and your monetization sounds like it's almost exclusively built into a bundle. Yep. Do you think that is the long-term play, or do you think there's an argument whether it's either separating the businesses or at least just offering a direct consumer offering just for the platform, that needs to be something you need to look at?
And again, it's a very good question. The answer is, if I had to be very, very honest, the answer is I don't know. We don't know. Because again, it's like a balance. On one side, having the TV content tied to the broadband, it brings huge value to both areas because for the TV, being distributed together with the leading communication player in the market, it enables a tremendous stability and a tremendous growth. I think many of the OTT players, they have the same feeling. I mean, there is a reason why all OTT players, ones that have been around for a longer time, they're partnering with the leading distributors in each market, and it gives you a lot of stability. We're selling machines. A telco company, they know they have channels. They know how to reach customers. So I think that probably if the TV business hadn't been partnered with the telco business, I don't think we would grow as much as we have grown in the past. But at the same time, also for the connectivity business, it's also a good deal because it enables you to differentiate yourself, your connectivity, which sometimes is not that obvious a differentiating factor. You have one additional element to be able to tell to your customers, look, it's good that you have the program with us or your mobile with us because you have access to this kind of content. So that's is good on both sides. But I think we're also very, very, very aware of the fact that there's also drawbacks to this. The drawback for the TV is that once you have reached high enough penetration of your broadband customers, there's not a lot of place to grow. We're starting to feel that. And there's also for the communications business, there is also a drawback that the economic cycle of both businesses is starting to diverge. It was not like that only 3 years ago when I joined, but Right now, especially in the media business, we're entering a phase where there's a bunch of people that they're not so much interested in making money, at least in the short term. I would argue that some people are not interested in making money ever. But in this specific business, because it's part of a broader, set of services. But we're living a little bit of a crazy time that I think we will all recognize is not very sustainable going forward. Um, so the economic cycle of the media business and the economic cycle of a sustainable and very mature business like the communication business is starting to diverge. Um, so it's not obvious that having both of them tied up is the optimal thing to do. So this is something that we're rethinking all the time, and well, we'll see. So far, so good. So far, we still believe that the current situation that I have is the one that optimizes the value for us. But I'm not. I don't feel that confident that we'll continue to be so in the future.
One of the challenges with sports rights is some of the regulations that exist around the limited rights cycles. I believe it's 3 years in most markets for the top tier rights, although we're starting to see in some markets those extend somehow. Does the possibility, question has come in from the audience actually, was about this from Tim Westcott, which is, does the possibility of the Liga rights for 6 years make them discernibly more appealing to you?
Well, the fact is that there's several regulations that take place. I mean, one regulation impacts the way that the rights are sold, the way that La Liga believes, and they have a strong legal argument, I think, to believe that they have the right to sell the rights in 5 years, for 5 years, for a 5-year period, and they're willing to accept offers there. For us, again, because we are we have to live through these remedies. It's not very obvious that we could do that, or whether we should go just for an offering for 3 years. Um, Honestly, the way that we look at it, for us is fairly indifferent. We don't really have an issue. I think the difference between 3 to 5 years for us, from a business, for our kind of business, doesn't really. I mean, yeah, we wouldn't mind going for 5 years. We don't mind going for three. It's not so much. If you tell me, like in some other places, you see like it's either 3 years or like a 15-year commitment. Well, that's a different story. But 3 to 5 years, the only thing that I would, and it's more on a personal basis, the only thing that I would prefer around the 5-year deal is that it really feels like it was only yesterday that we were, going with an offering for the La Liga rights, and it's already. I mean, it literally feels like yesterday, and it's like we're in the middle of the same cycle again. So it feels like I don't know. It feels like a couple more years. I think would be beneficial for all of us to build the asset together, and because it's like first year you're getting to know each other, second year you're starting already. It's okay. By the end of second year, you're starting to really think, okay, do we really want to go ahead and push this forward? Because we might not have it actually a year from now. So it feels like it's too long or too short of a term. But again, for us, it's fairly different.
Yeah, I think the difference would be for a business that like yours that is mature, that has an established audience and proposition, you don't need as long to make those rights work for you. Whereas if you're a new player to the market, 3 years is not going to be enough to build a sustainable business model around a premium set of rights. I would imagine as well. So
Yeah,
and
you
we've
could
seen,
claim that, and
yeah,
some people do claim that, Nick. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not lucky enough to be running one of those new OTT players. But honestly, if I were, I mean, if you're spending just in rights, if you're spending over €1 billion a year, and if you haven't been able to prove that you can make a profit out of that after 3 years, so you're probably sinking over 3 billion just in revenue. I mean, I don't know if 2 extra years will work for you. I mean, I don't know, honestly. I mean, but but again, yes, I think that we'll figure out. I mean, on the other hand, if you're making a strong bet and you're committing, I mean, I guess committing 5 billion against committing 3 billion, there's gotta be a con there as well. But as you say, I think that for us, because we're more mature and we don't have to deal with those kind of things, and we already have the subscribers, so we don't have to build a new customer base. Um, it feels fairly different.
One of the reasons these longer cycles are in place, particularly in the US, and they're coming with more flexibility, I suppose, is because of this shift in the way consumption is happening across the consumers. Does that play a role for you as well, or is that not really a factor because you are everywhere effectively in your distribution strategy?
But why would it? In which way does it impact the
Well,
length?
in terms of because of the shift towards more and more streaming, and particularly in markets like the US, where the streaming adoption is becoming stronger and more prominent, cable and so forth is still the leader, but there is starting to see
Yeah.
a reduction in subscriptions and users at home to a streaming platform. So I guess in terms of sort of riding the wave of that change in consumption, that obviously has an impact for those OTT dedicated businesses that still have to break the behavior of the incumbents as well, and that's probably where those longer cycles can potentially play a role. Do you think?
I don't know. I couldn't tell. I honestly, and excuse me for my obvious bias, which is a subconscious bias. I don't mean this because I have to say this. I mean, I say this because I strongly believe it. I don't think really streaming makes a difference. Honestly, I think that what makes the difference is that there's an appetite now for investors, and I think that's good. Um, to build, to bet on plays that feel global, and so there's a lot of money around to be willing to put money behind guys that are willing to take a global bet. Yes, you could argue that technology facilitates that. So, I mean, especially if you look back 20 years ago, where there was like nothing, there was cable or there was satellite. So it was very difficult for a player based in Spain to move to whatever it is, because I mean, you didn't have access. But I don't think that has changed so much in the past 5 years or so. I think that technology has been enabling that for quite a while already. Even you could do that with the previous technology. I mean, we could have people like us. We could have bought La Liga rights, and we could have spent like I don't know 2 billion a year in the sport rights, and launch it a global, a sport thing globally. Yes, we will have to reach with an agreement with somebody in the U.S. to carry our signal, but we could have done that. It was not the technology thing that prevented us from doing that. I don't think, honestly, I don't think the secret to if you look at players, OTT players that are more mature, like Netflix, I know for a fact that they don't believe this, and they're absolutely right, they're probably right, but I don't believe that the secret to Netflix success worldwide has anything to do with technology. I don't think I think that they might have started as an alternative distribution mechanisms, and they might have seen our people like us like their competitors. But we are not the competitors anymore. I think they realized that a long time ago. They're competing with Disney. And the secret to the success of Netflix is that they found a model in which they could scale the investment that they provided in content. They could scale that very rapidly globally. And of course, technology facilitates that. I'm not claiming that it has like zero. I mean, it's enable it's great when you just push a button and you're present in 150 countries. But Disney didn't have that, and they had agreements with people like us across 150 countries. And I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not sure if Disney has more customers now than it used to. It access more customers now than they used to in the past. You could argue that for people like ourselves, I mean, more clients of us had access to Disney before than they do have now. So I don't think, again, I don't think it has to do with technology enabling a global reach. The global reach was already there. I think that the thing that has really made a difference is that There's some guys that came up and they were super smart to came up with a business model that enabled them to spend like 10 billion, 15 billion, whatever it was, a year in content, and to come up with a business model that enabled them to monetize that investment on a global scale. But you could argue that people like Disney or ESPN, in the case of the sports, could have done this 15 years ago. They could have done it. I mean, ESPN could have bought the. You don't need DAZN to come over to Spain to be super smart and have an OTT to buy the La Liga rights. ESPN could have done it 10 years ago, and the reason why they didn't,
All you
I
need,
guess, it had nothing to do with technology.
all you need is a $10 billion runway to build a business and create a lot of content, and you're good to go in any market you want to launch. Sergio, that's all we've got time for today. A big thank you to Sergio Osle for joining us and giving us such a great insight into Movistar Plus and the Spanish market. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in.
Thank you so much, Nick, and everybody. Cheers.